Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to Australian Christmas Dinner Numbers by the Decade 2001 to 2023. This series will be a bit complex. We'll try to get average Australian Christmas dinner prices in another Numbers by the Decade series in 2025 or something like that, so I don't overwhelm you. We'll be mainly focused on the dinner parts, aka centerpiece meats, and that's it. We're not also talking about the sides, we're mainly talking about the centerpiece. So let's start with 2001, the first year of not just the 2000s, but the first year of the third millennium as well. What are the typical Christmas dinner centerpiece meat options in Australia? According to an AI overview, here they are: ham, turkey, prawns, oysters, roast chicken, lamb, and beef. Under ham it reads, a traditional Australian dish that's cooked and served in many ways. Australians often prepare ham a few days before Christmas and serve it cold, sliced, and used to make sandwiches. And first of all, I thought they usually have Christmas dinner in January. I may or may not be wrong here, but if I'm wrong, sorry about that. Under turkey it reads, a classic Christmas meat, but Australians may serve cold turkey instead of a hot roast dinner because Christmas falls at the beginning of summer because Australia is in the southern hemisphere. Under prawns it reads, a popular Christmas food in Australia, often served pre-cooked and peeled. And under oysters it reads, a seafood snack that's becoming more popular for Christmas. And it reads underneath, other traditional Christmas foods in Australia including roast chicken, lamb, and beef. For this series, we'll go from 2001 to 2023 for each separate centerpiece meat item, so this series will comprise of 15 episodes. Episodes 1 to 3 will cover ham, 4 to 6 will cover prawns and oysters all at once, 7 to 9 will cover turkey, 10 to 12 will cover beef and lamb at the same time, and episodes 13 to 15 in December of this year will cover roast chicken, the least popular in Australia. So, as I said earlier, let's start off with ham. Before we get into cracking those numbers down, let's properly define the methodology. We will use the Australian population for each respective year, take into consideration the number of animals slaughtered for said meat in every December of each year, use averages like the average weight of a roast ham in Australia, so that then and only then, we would get our ballpark estimates for such time period. For the average weight of a ham in pounds, we'll figure out the average weight of a roast ham, then use the population to determine how many Australians were served for each singular centerpiece meat choice, how many hams were consumed and wasted. The same goes for every other choice I will cover later down the line in the series. So to sum it up shortly, number 1, Australian population for respective year divided by the average weight of a roast ham in Australia, which is 8.8 pounds, or also 4 kilograms. That's the median number, which we'll get to establishing in a little bit. And finally, number 2, the number of hams consumed compared to how many were slaughtered in the month of December for each year, to determine what I call the ham consumption ratio. The average size of an Australian Christmas dinner gathering is about 7 people when it comes to ham. I don't know what the average size of an Australian Christmas dinner gathering really is until we account for all centerpiece meats, and then we all get the average. It might as well be 10, accounting for all of them all at once for every year and decade. So with that out of the way, let's get to breaking those numbers down, shall we? According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, in December of 2001, 1,313,400 pigs were slaughtered. This is what a metric ton is when it comes to measurements in Australia, which equals to 97,059 metric tons, or 213,976,271.4 pounds of pork slaughtered and produced in the entirety of the month of December of 2001. The Australian population in 2001 clocked in at 19,248,143. Now again, the average weight of an Australian roast ham is 8.8 pounds. The average serving amount per Australian in weight, 225 grams. 3.48 pounds for 7 people on average, comprising of only 1 serving for each person. The number of Australians served Christmas dinner for Christmas of 2001, 2,749,735 of them. Crunching those numbers down, we get the fact that in individual units, 392,819 of them were consumed by Australians. So, 392,819 hams in comparison to 1,313,400 pigs slaughtered? We'll get to ham consumption ratio now. When it comes to roasts, a pig can only have 2 hind legs, while overall they normally have 4 legs. So, in short summary, the ham to waste ratio is solely based on the fact that 1 ham roast or pork leg roast can only come from one side or one of the 2 hind legs on the pig. So, this also demonstrates both the number of hams consumed, bought, and produced, but were left to waste anyway without having been bought at the same time. So, number of pigs slaughtered divided by 2 equals the max number of hams for each year in Australia when it comes to Christmas dinner, centerpiece meat options. So, the ham consumption ratio for the Christmas of 2001, 392,819 of them out of 656,700 of them, or the ham consumption ratio of 59.8. Meaning that only 263,881 of them were wasted. Now, you understand how the methodology works and how it's put into practice. Now let's just make things easier for you all. Let's head on into 2002. The number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year was 1,381,700 of them. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of their Christmas dinner? 2,749,735. The number of hams consumed, 312,470. And the ham consumption ratio, 312,470 out of 690,850 of them, or 45.3%. Heading into 2003, the number of pigs slaughtered in the month of December of that year, 1,376,900 of them. The number of Australians served, 2,814,143. And the number of hams consumed, 319,789, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, or 319,789 out of 688,450 of them, equals 46.5%. Heading into 2004, where the number of pigs slaughtered in the month of December of that year was 1,303,700. The number of Australians that were served this as the centerpiece meat option was 2,846,437. And the number of hams consumed for the Christmas of 2004 in Australia, 323,459. And the ham consumption ratio, or 323,459 out of 651,850 of them, is and was 49.6%. Now heading into the Christmas of 2005, in the month of December of that year, 1,322,300 pigs were slaughtered. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of their Christmas dinner, 2,881,676. And the number of hams that were consumed by Australians for the Christmas of that year was 327,463, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which is 327,463 out of 661,150, is 49.5%. Heading into 2006, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year was 1,314,200 of them. The number of Australians served this meat option as the centerpiece was 2,923,861, and the number of hams consumed for the Christmas of that year in Australia was 332,257, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which comprises of 332,257 out of 657,100, means that it's 50.6%. The first year to surpass the 50% mark and the majority since 2001. Heading into the Christmas of 2007, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year was 1,322,800 of them. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of their Christmas dinners was 2,975,833, meaning that the number of hams they consumed chalked up to 338,163, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which comprises of 338,163 out of the 661,400 of them, is 51.2%. Heading into 2008, where the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year, 1,141,500 of them. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece for their Christmas dinners chalks up to 3,035,410 Australians, and the number of hams consumed by said Australians only amounts to 344,933 of them, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which comprises of 344,933 out of 570,750 of them, is 60.4%. Heading into 2009, where the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year in Australia was 1,162,300. The number of Australians served ham as their centerpiece of Christmas dinner is 3,094,413 of them, meaning that the number of hams they consumed amounted to only 351,638 of them, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which comprises of 351,638 out of 581,150 of them, is 60.5%. And finally, we head into 2010, where the number of pigs in total that were slaughtered in December of that year amounts to 1,151,600 of them, and the number of Australians that were served ham as the centerpiece for their Christmas dinners amounts to 3,145,595 of them, meaning that the number of hams that were consumed amounted to 357,454, meaning that the ham consumption ratio for the Christmas of 2010 in Australia, that comprises of only 357,454 out of 575,800 of them, is 62.1%. So now, the reason why I only mentioned the ham waste statistic for 2001 earlier on was to demonstrate to you all how the methodology works and how it's put into practice. Now let's get to every single year when it comes to ham waste. 2001, 263,881 of them. 2002, 378,380 of them. 2003, 368,661 of them. 2004, 328,391 of them. 2005, 333,687 of them. 2006, 324,843 of them. 2007, 323,237 of them. 2008, 225,817 of them. 2009, 229,512 of them. And for 2010, 218,346 of them. Now let's get to the consumption waste ratio for each year in this decade and the average consumption waste ratio for ham when it comes to Christmas dinner in Australia. 2001, 59.8% to 40.2%. 2002, 45.3% to 54.7%. 2003, 46.5% to 53.5%. 2004, 49.6% to 50.4%. 2005, 49.5% to 50.5%. 2006, 50.6% to 49.4%. 2007, 51.2% to 48.8%. 2008, 60.4% to 39.6%. 2009, 60.5% to 39.5%. And for 2010, 62.1% to 37.9%. Meaning that the average consumption waste ratio when it comes to Christmas dinner ham in Australia is 53.5% to 46.5%. Thank you all so much for watching the first episode of Australian Christmas Dinner Numbers by the Decade 2001 to 2023. Tune in next time where I cover the 2010s, 2011 to 2020. I am Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you then. Hello everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to episode 2 of this series. We're going to cover the 2010s, 2011 to 2020 when it comes to ham consumption and waste when it comes to Christmas dinner in Australia. Let's get straight to the math. Here's the Australian population for the decade I'm covering in this episode. In 2011, the number of pigs that were slaughtered in the month of December of that year, 1,170,500. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner, 3,193,862. The number of hams in individual roast units that were consumed in Australia for this Christmas, 362,939, and the ham consumption ratio, 362,939 out of 585,250, equals 62%. For 2012, the number of pigs slaughtered in the month of December of that year, 1,198,100. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner, 3,247,038. The number of hams in individual roast units consumed in Australia for the Christmas of 2012, 368,982. And the ham consumption ratio for the Christmas of 2012 in Australia, 368,982 out of 599,050 equals 61.6%. In 2013, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year in Australia, 1,169,800. The number of Australians served ham as centerpiece, 3,301,683. The number of hams in individual roast units consumed in Australia, 375,191. And the ham consumption ratio, 376,191 out of 584,900 equals 64.3%. The number of pigs slaughtered in December of 2014, 1,200,300. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner, 3,352,797. The number of hams in individual roast units consumed in Australia for the Christmas of 2014, 381,000. And the ham consumption ratio, 381,000 out of 614,566 equals 62%. For 2015, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year, 1,229,133. The number of Australians served ham as centerpiece, 3,402,891. And the number of hams in individual roast units that were consumed for the Christmas of 2015 in Australia, 386,692. And the ham consumption ratio, 386,692 out of 614,566 equals 63%. For 2016, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year in Australia, 1,279,504. The number of Australians served ham as centerpiece, 3,456,529. The number of hams in individual roast units consumed in Australia, 392,787. And the ham consumption ratio, 392,787 out of 639,752 equals 61.4%. In 2017, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year in Australia, 1,339,226. The number of Australians served ham as centerpiece, 3,512,905. The number of hams in individual roast units consumed in Australia as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner, 399,194. And the ham consumption ratio, 399,194 out of 669,613 equals 59.6%. In 2018, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year, 1,359,511. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of their Christmas dinners, 3,568,461. The number of hams in individual roast units consumed in Australia as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner, 405,507. And the ham consumption ratio, 406,507 out of 679,755 equals 59.8%. In 2019, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year, 1,263,000. The number of Australians served ham as centerpiece, 3,622,453. The number of hams in individual roast units consumed in Australia as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner, 411,642. And the ham consumption ratio, 411,642 out of 631,500 equals 65.2%. And finally in 2020, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year in Australia, 1,383,300. The number of Australians served ham as centerpiece, 3,667,150. The number of hams in individual roast units consumed in Australia, 416,722. And ham consumption ratio, 415,722 out of 691,650 equals 60.1%. Now let's get to ham waste in individual units. 2011, 222,311. 2012, 230,068. 2013, 208,709. 2014, 233,566. 2015, 227,874. 2016, 246,965. 2017, 270,419. 2018, 273,248. 2019, 219,858. And 2020, 275,928. And finally, to end this episode, consumption to waste ratio for ham in Australia as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner. 2011, 62% to 38%. 2012, 61.6% to 38.4%. 2013, 64.3% to 35.7%. 2014, 62% to 38%. 2015, 63% to 37%. 2016, 61.4% to 38.6%. 2017, 59.6% to 40.4%. 2018, 59.8% to 40.2%. 2019, 65.2% to 34.8%. And for 2020, 60.1% to 39.9%. And the average consumption waste ratio for this centerpiece meat in Australia, for this purpose, 61.9% to 38.1%. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you in the next episode where we just cover the last few years, 2021 to 23. See ya then. Hi, it's Brian here. Welcome to the last of the episodes covering ham as the centerpiece of Australian Christmas dinner. Here are the numbers representing the Australian population from 2021 to 2023. In 2021, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year was 1,414,800. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece, 3,703,013. The number of hams consumed, 420,797, and the ham consumption ratio, 420,797 out of 707,400 equals 59.5%. In 2022, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year was 1,376,900. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece, 3,739,630. The number of hams consumed, 424,958, and the ham consumption ratio, 424,958 out of 688,450 equals 61.7%. And finally, in 2023, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year, 1,452,000. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece, 3,777,016. The number of hams consumed, 429,206. And the ham consumption ratio, 429,206 out of 726,000 equals 59.2%. So to save you time, here are all the numbers of hams consumed for the Christmas of each year in Australia. And the same goes for ham waste as well right after. You can pause and read, I'm not going to waste your time. And here is the average consumption to waste ratio for each decade and the last few years. The 2000s, 2001 to 2010, 53.5%, to 46.5%, the 2010s 2011 to 2020 61.9% to 38.1%, and finally 2021 59.5% to 40.5%, 2022 61.7% to 38.3%, and for 2023 59.2% to 40.8%, meaning that the average for 2021 to 2023 is 60.2% to 39.8%. The average overall from 2001 to 2023 when it comes to ham as the centerpiece of Australian Christmas dinner, 58.5% to 41.5%. Thank you all so much for watching this sector of this series. I'm Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. I will see you in the next episode where I begin to cover prawns and oysters. See you then. Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to episode 4 of Australian Christmas Dinner Numbers by the Decade 2001 to 2023. We're going to take a deep dive under the sea with Christmas dinner, oyster, and prawn statistics for Australia. How many of each serves one person, and how big is the average family gathering size, how many are consumed each year, and so on and so forth. Without any further commentary, let's get into it. Let's start with prawns. Here are some statistics about prawns and Christmas in Australia. Consumption. Australians typically eat around 22,000 tons of prawns during Christmas. Again, that's an estimate. It can be taken with a massive grain of salt, which is about 40% of their annual prawn consumption. This is equivalent to the contents of 10 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And the main breed of prawn Australians typically consume as a Christmas dinner centerpiece meat or side dish meat choice is tiger prawns. Females can reach about 33 centimeters or 13 inches long, but are typically 25 to 30 centimeters or 10 to 12 inches long and weigh 200 to 320 grams or 7 to 11 ounces. Males are slightly smaller at 20 to 25 centimeters or 8 to 10 inches long and weighing between 100 and 170 grams or 3.5 to 6.0 ounces. So I've done the math. And the average weight of a female tiger prawn in grams is 260, and the average weight of a male tiger prawn in grams is 135. That means the average weight of a tiger prawn is 197.5 grams. And the recommended serving of prawns per person is typically 300 to 400 grams. Now let's set the methodology straight once and for all, before we get to the years and decades. To put this into perspective, the average weight of a prawn is 197.5 grams, and 1 million grams is a metric ton. How we'll do the math is calculate how many prawns in individual units were consumed for the Christmas of each year in Australia by dividing the production of prawns, which only accounts for an estimated 40% of annual prawn consumption in metric tons, in millions of grams, by 197.5 grams. How we'll do the math to calculate the average gathering size in people is account for the average serving amount per person in grams by the Australian population for each respective year. And this, as we'll show later, means I'm also accounting for tourists, other people who came from other countries like New Zealand or Canada who have family in Australia. So don't be surprised if the numbers seem a little higher than the Australian population. That would only mean it's presumably 100% of the Australian population and then some. However, we're not going to be able to measure how many were wasted because simply they typically and technically aren't. Only the shells or whatever's left outside of what they consumed are thrown away, or the portions of the prawns and or oysters that are inedible, the vast majority of which are edible. The average Australian serving size eats about 2 prawns per person per serving. Okay, so here's the formula. Australian Christmas prawn consumption. Prawn production in metric tons converted to grams multiplied by 0.4 or 40% equals X divided by 197.5 grams. You got it? Good. Now let's get to the years. In 2001, 29 billion 32 million grams times 40% equals 11 27,612,800,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 58,798,987 prawns. In 2002, 25,896,000,000 grams times 40% equals 10,358,400,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 52,447,595 prawns. 2003, 27,106,000,000 grams times 40% equals 10,842,400,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 54,898,228 prawns. In 2004, 23,570,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 9,428,000,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 47,736,709 prawns. In 2005, 23,187,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 9,274,800,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 46,961,013 prawns. In 2006, 20,800,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 8,320,000,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 42,126,583 prawns. In 2007, 22,430,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 8,972,000,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 45,427,848 prawns. In 2008, 24,200,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 9,680,000,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 49,012,658 prawns. In 2009, 27,034,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 10,813,600,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 54,752,405 prawns. And finally, in 2010, 10,400,000,000 grams divided by 197.5 equals 52,658,228 prawns. The average number of prawns consumed for this decade, known as the 2000s, 50,482,025. The average gathering size for Australian Christmas dinner in comparison to the Australian population. The methodology for finding the average gathering size for this meat choice by dividing the number of prawns consumed by the Australian population for each year. So, as of scripting and recording this, the average size of a gathering to which prawns alone are concerned when it comes to prawns as a side dish meat or centerpiece meat choice for Australian Christmas dinner is 3 people. Now let's continue and start with oysters. Oysters can vary in size and weight, but typically weigh between 0.7 and 1.06 ounces each, or around 15 to 22 oysters per pound. A single oyster can weigh as little as an ounce, or about 28 grams, or as much as 3 ounces, or over 75 grams. And through extrapolating that, I got that the average weight of an oyster in grams is 51.5 grams. Here are the serving sizes when it comes to oysters for each person. As an appetizer, 3 to 4 per person, second or third course, 5 to 6 per person, or the main course, 6 to 8 oysters per person. And so, adding those serving sizes all together and averaging them all up, it only gives me the fact that the average Australian consumed 5.2 oysters for Christmas, much less Christmas dinner each year. And for math and time's sake, I'll also assume the same 40% number goes for oysters as well, because I can't find any meaningful estimates or monthly stats when it comes to oyster production and the like. So I'll fill in the gap without having to make anything up. In 2001, 9,644,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 3,857,600,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 74,904,854 oysters. In 2002, 9,855,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 3,942,000,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams grams equals 76,543,689 oysters. In 2003, 7,625,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 3,050,000,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 59,223,301 oysters. In 2004, 11,751,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 4,700,400,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 91,269,903 oysters. In 2005, 11,995,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 4,798,000,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 93,165,049 oysters. 2006, 14,400,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 5,760,000,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 111,844,660 oysters. In 2007, 12,460,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 4,984,000,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 96,776,699 oysters. In 2008, 14,200,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 5,680,000,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 110,291,262 oysters. For 2009, 14,807,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 5,922,800,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 115,005,825 oysters. And for 2010, 6 billion grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 116,504,855 oysters. The average number of oysters per person, of course, is 5.2 of them. So the total number of oysters consumed for the Christmas of each year in Australia divided by 5.2 oysters per person, all of this is done so we can get the percentage of Australians who consumed oysters as a meat option as a part of their Christmas dinner. The number of Australians served oysters as either a centerpiece meat or side dish option and percentage of the Australian population. 2001, 14,404,780, 74.8% of the Australian population in that year. 2002, 14,719,940, 75.6% of Australian population. 2003, 11,389,096, 57.8% of Australian population. 2004, 17,551,904, 88.1% of Australian population. 2005, 17,916,356, 88.8% of the Australian population. 2006, 21,508,588. The Australian population plus some Australians have more than one serving of 5.2 oysters, or other people from other countries who have relatives who live in Australia came together and had a party. In short, presumptively 100% of the Australian population, alongside with 1,041,558 additional average servings. 2007, 18,608,980, 89.3% of the Australian population. 2008, 21,209,858, 99.8% of the Australian population. 2009, 22,116,505. Same thing goes for 2009 as with 2006, but this time alongside with 455,613 additional average servings. And for 2010, 22,404,780. Same thing goes for this year too, but this time alongside with 385,612 additional average servings. Man, they really must be partying up in Australia, because, again, since they're in the southern hemisphere, they're having like a beach party or whatever, even though it's Christmas. And like I said before, for the years 2006, 9, and 2010, the average servings also account for visitors from other countries like New Zealand, the US, Canada, and others, and only those who have relatives that live in Australia. Thank you all so much for watching this long-ass video. I am Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you in the next episode where we cover the 2010s when it comes to both of these meat options. See you then. Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to the 5th episode of this fantastic series. We're basically a third of the way through it. Let's get straight to it. The methodologies for both respective meat choices have remained the same. Let's start with Christmas prawn consumption. In 2011, 2,900,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 1,160,000,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 5,873,418 prawns. In 2012, 34,752,000,000 grams multiplied by 0.4 or 40% equals 13,900,800,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 70,383,797 prawns. In 2013, 38,671,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 15,468,400,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 78,321,013 prawns. In 2014, 32,359,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 12,943,600,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 65,537,215 prawns. In 2015, 31,918,800,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 12,767,520,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 64,645,671 prawns. For 2016, 31,768,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 12,707,200,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 64,340,253 prawns. In 2017, 2,434,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 973,600,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 4,929,620 prawns. In 2018, 4,630,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 1,852,000,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 9,377,215 prawns. In 2019, 6,245,200,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 2,498,080,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 12,648,506 prawns. And finally for 2020, 8,700,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 3,480,000,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 17,620,253 prawns. And the decade average is 39,367,696 prawns. Now let's move on to oysters. In 2011, 15 billion grams multiplied by 40% equals 6 billion grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 116,504,854 oysters. In 2012, 517 million grams multiplied by 40% equals 206,800,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 4,015,534 oysters. In 2013, 6 608 million grams multiplied by 40% equals 243,200,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 4,722,330 oysters. In 2014, 394 million grams multiplied by 40% equals 157,600,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 3,060,194 oysters. 2015, 467 million grams multiplied by 40% equals 186,800,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 3,627,184 oysters. In 2016, 498 million grams multiplied by 40% equals 199,200,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 3,867,961 oysters. In 2017, 2,177,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 870,800,000 grams divided by 51.5 grams equals 16,908,738 oysters. In 2018, simply 904,740 multiplied by 40% equals 361,896 oysters. In 2019, 668,220 multiplied by 40% equals 267,288 oysters. And for 2020, 1,048,884 multiplied by 40% equals 419,554 oysters. And here are the number of Australians served Christmas oysters. And the only year we're concerning additional servings and international travelers who have family members who live in Australia is 2011. The rest are microscopic in percentage in comparison to the Australian population. Well, thank you all for watching. See you next time where we finish off on the duo of prawns and oysters. I've been your host, Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you then. Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to the last episode covering prawns and oysters in this series, right before we head into covering Australian Christmas turkey consumption and waste stats. This one will be quite different from the rest. We'll have to read an article about oysters later on in this episode, but until then, let's get right into the stats. Starting with Australian Christmas prawn statistics. 2021, 8,727,500,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 3,491,000,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 17,675,949 prawns. In 2022, 9,825,500,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 3,930,200,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 19,899,747 prawns. And finally in 2023, 4,128,000,000 grams multiplied by 40% equals 1,651,200,000 grams divided by 197.5 grams equals 8,360,506 prawns. And now let's get straight into oysters before we get to the averages for both and end this episode. In 2021, 606,564 multiplied by 40% equals 242,626 oysters. In 2022, 949,032 multiplied by 40% equals 379,613 oysters. Also, by the way, before I get into 2023, I won't be able to do the whole population thing anymore when it comes to oysters and how many consumers there are for each year from here on out. Now, according to an article called Flooding and Heavy Rain Could Mean Something Missing from Your Christmas Table, published onto the Sydney Morning Herald by Laura Chung on December 6th, 2023, oyster farmers along the south coast should be ramping up for the busiest time of the year, but this Christmas recent heavy rain and flooding means there will be shortages. The region is one of the most significant oyster producing regions in Australia, producing about 60% of the state's total oyster production. Every estuary south of Sydney is closed for harvesting after heavy rainfall and floods smashed the area last week. When some areas received 250 to 300 millimeters, Porters Creek received the most rainfall in 24 hours with 351 millimeters, while Jervis Bay recorded 226.8 millimeters of rain, and Moruya had 225 millimeters. Industry Support Officer Anna Simmons from Sapphire Coast Wilderness Oysters, a group on the south coast that supports producers, said the current harvesting shutdown would be the biggest Christmas oyster shortage in some time. The current situation on the south coast leaves a significant shortfall in the market and a missed opportunity for many local farmers who will likely lose their lucrative Christmas sales. But on the flip side, many north coast estuaries are open, and this should present them with a great opportunity to fill the shortfall after also enduring a tough few years, she said. Kelly Jones, co-owner of Natural Oyster Company, located in Pambula, said logs and debris were washed into their oyster leases, which will take weeks to clean up. Salinity levels will also be affected, so oysters cannot be harvested until water returns to normal. We won't be selling oysters before Christmas, Jones said. She added, it will take some time for them to do water sampling and quality assurance to ensure the oysters are 100%. Which means they will be closed until early next year, like many oyster farmers in the region. So what I'm basically saying is, either it's an estimate so small that I can't even come up with a percentage of the makeup of oyster consumers in comparison to the Australian population, there can't be an estimate made in any positive sense, or if it's to the point where it can't be estimated at all in a positive sense, it's by far more likely that 0 oysters were consumed for the Christmas of 2023 in Australia. So before I end this episode and this portion of the series, let's analyze the averages for each meat choice for the last time. Given the shocking news, it went straight to 0, also assuming that Australians seeing the news are concerned, so they decided that they would be a bit of a risk to eat those oysters from the northern portions of Australia from those said estuaries, or they chose to opt out of oysters and just have prawns with their turkey and ham. Let's get to prawns and then oysters when it comes to the average consumption in individual units. The 2000s, 50,482,025 prawns. The 2010s, 39,367,696 prawns. And from 2021 to 2023, the average is 15,312,067 prawns. And finally, let's get to oysters. The 2000s, with an average of 94,553,010 oysters. The 2010s, with the average of 15,375,553 oysters. And finally, for the years 2021 to 2023, presumably also accounting for 0 oysters in 2023, 311,119 oysters, a drastic drop in comparison to the 2 previous decades before it. Thank you all for watching. That's the best I can do when it comes to prawns and oysters from 2001 to 2023. I'm Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you in the next episode where I start covering Australian Christmas turkey. See you then. Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to the first episode of this series, of which I'll be delving into Australian Christmas turkey dinner consumption and waste statistics. starting with the 2000s as usual. But before we get to it, let's debunk some estimates that is pulled out of thin air without proper context, without considering or accounting for total turkey meat production in Australia, as I'll get to later on in this video, and the other just random estimates that are pulled out of the asses of people who don't know how to do proper research are most times self-contradictory. According to AussieTurkeys.com, it says, on average, Australians eat approximately 1 kilogram of turkey per person per year, most of which is consumed during 1 week at Christmas. And it leads me to an article about it, which doesn't give me yearly stats, is random, is a bit vague, and again, like I mentioned before, doesn't account for total turkey meat production in that country for every year. And then you have this hilarious one. In Australia, roughly 4.5 million turkeys are consumed during Christmas out of the approximately 6 million turkeys slaughtered for meat each year. And then it says, Australia also throws away a significant amount of food during Christmas, including turkeys, mince pies, and Christmas puddings? I get that Australians do eat their own version of Britain's mince pies and Christmas puddings, but come on, you can't just use another country's statistics as if it came from Australia as a substitute for a lack of statistics. You can't just do that. Australians don't even do Christmas dinner, much less Christmas itself, the same way that England does, or America does, or Canada does. You can't just say an estimated 2 million turkeys end up in the trash in Australia when it comes to Christmas dinner centerpiece meats, and then claim that 4.5 million turkeys are being consumed during Christmas. Either it's more than 6 million, or it's just a bunch of useless, meaningless estimates you people pulled out your asses and just whacked them up the side of the heads with these numbers without doing proper math, proper contextualization, which does matter, and these journalists are just lazy as fuck and they'll just lie to you anyway if you're an Australian. But luckily, unlike those journalists, I'll get to the truth and actual statistics that matters. But before I get to the methodology and get it straight, I'll give you all the statistical references and their respective sources. According to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, the only thing we could take without having to debunk it is the 75% number, which I will presume is true, despite the fact that it says that Australia produces about 5 million turkeys each year instead of 6. According to Poultry Hub Australia, the average weight of a turkey, both male and female, is between 3.6 kilograms or 8 pounds and 7.2 kilograms or 16 pounds. We're going to add the 2 up and then divide by 2, and it gives us the fact that basically what it's saying is the average weight of a roast turkey is about 12 pounds. In the sense. So the methodology should be relatively simple, starting with consumption. According to Nation Master and the FAO, which is an organization run by the United Nations that serves the purpose of collecting and distributing statistics and data about certain meats and whatever for each country. Here's the huge stack of stats when it comes to turkey meat production in Australia for each year in metric tons. But instead of last time, we're going to convert metric tons to pounds instead of grams, then divide those numbers by 12 and then multiply by 75%. So here we are at the moment of truth. Australian Christmas turkey consumption starting with the 2000s. In 2001, 29,321,481 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 1,832,593 of them. In 2002, 23,920,155 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 1,495,010 of them. In 2003, 31,636,335 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 1,977,271 of them. In 2004, 27,778,245 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 1,736,140 of them. In 2005, 2005, 25,463,391 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 1,591,462 of them. In 2006, 47,840,311 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 2,990,019 of them. In 2007, 80,248,263 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 5,015,516 of them. In 2008, 51,698,400 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 3,231,150 of them. In 2009, 48,997,737.8 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 3,062,359 of them. And finally for 2010, 48,611,929 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 3,038,246 of them. And the decade average in consumption numbers is 2,596,977 of them. Now let's get straight into Australian Christmas turkey waste statistics. But instead of having to go through and rattle those numbers out again, I'll just say the waste statistics, as in the number. But instead of 75%, we multiply by 25%. 2001, 610,864 turkeys. 2002, 498,337 turkeys. 2003, 659,090 turkeys. In 2004, 578,713 turkeys. In 2005, 530,487 turkeys. In 2006, 996,673 turkeys. 2007, 1,671,839 turkeys. 2008, 1,077,050 turkeys. In 2009, 1,020,786 turkeys. And 2010, 1,012,749 turkeys. And the Australian Christmas turkey waste decade average for the 2000s is 865,659 turkeys. The consumption average is nowhere near the 4.5 million, and the waste average is nowhere near 2 million. So, there are the real stats versus the fake ones that are just pulled out of journalists' asses. I'm Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. Tune in next time where I cover the last full-on decade when it comes to these statistics, the 2010s. See you then. Hi everyone, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to episode 8 of Australian Christmas Dinner Numbers by the Decade. Let's get into the last full decade when it comes to turkey consumption and waste statistics as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner in Australia. The sources and methodology stay largely the same, but for 2020 the research was not as easy as I thought it would be. Yet I decidedly made up for it, so you don't have to. So let's just get straight to it. 2011, 47,840,311 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 2,990,019 turkeys. In 2012, 49,604,009 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 3,100,251 turkeys. In 2013, 48,880,892.8 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 3,055,056 turkeys. 2014, 48,942,622 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 3,058,914 turkeys. In 2015, 48,916,166.7 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 1,467,485 turkeys. In 2016, 48,689,090.6 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 1,460,673 turkeys. In 2017, 48,766,252 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 3,047,891 turkeys. In 2018, 47,756,535.2 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 2,984,783 turkeys. In 2019, 45,053,667.9 pounds divided by 12 pounds multiplied by 75% equals 2,815,854 turkeys. And finally, for 2020, this one will be simple, even though it was anything but before. According to the 2024 Animal Kill Clock for Australia, the yearly average number of turkeys that are slaughtered for each year is 6,320,000. I multiply that number by 75%, which gives me 4,740,000 turkeys as the number of turkeys consumed for Christmas in 2020 in Australia, which means the decade average between 2011 to 2020 is 2,872,093. Let's just get straight into turkey waste and then the average and finally end this episode. The numbers for turkey meat production in pounds and the methodologies will stay the same here too. Let's just say the numbers then. 2011, 996,673 turkeys wasted. 2012, 1,033,417 turkeys wasted. 2013, 1,018,352 turkeys wasted. 2014, 1,019,638 turkeys wasted. 2015, 1,019,087 turkeys wasted. 2016, 1,014,356 turkeys wasted. 2017, 1,015,964 turkeys wasted. 2018, 994,928 turkeys wasted. 2019, 938,618 turkeys wasted. And 2020, 1,185,000 turkeys wasted, which gives us the decade average when it comes to Australian Christmas turkey waste statistics between 2011 to 2020 is 1,023,603 turkeys wasted. Thank you all for watching. I have been your host, Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you in the next and last episode covering turkey for 2021 to 2023. See you then. Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. This one will be the easiest and the very last episode covering turkey as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner in Australia. Welcome to episode 9. We're just going to cover 2021 to 2023, go over all the decade averages for consumption and waste, and prove those other so-called estimates as shown in episode 7 definitively wrong. Let's start with consumption as usual. For 2021 to 2023, the number of turkeys consumed for each is the same as 2020 due to both lack of statistics and accounting for consistent consumption habits. 4,740,000 turkeys. And finally, let's get to turkey waste. The same goes, but instead of 75%, it's 25%. For 2021 to 2023, 1,185,000 turkeys wasted. After we get to the averages, we'll figure out the average consumption to waste ratio. The averages for consumption, as we covered, Episode 7, 2001 to 2010, 2,596,977 turkeys. 2011 to 2020, as covered in Episode 8, 2,872,093 turkeys. And, as we just covered before we got to the averages, 4,740,000 turkeys. The average for consumption in Australia overall, 3,403,023 turkeys. Now let's get to waste before we'll see the average consumption to waste ratio. Averages for waste when it comes to Christmas dinner turkeys in Australia, 2001 to 2010, 865,659 turkeys, 2011 to 2020, 1,023,603 turkeys, and finally for 2021 to 2023, 1,185,000 turkeys. The average for waste overall from 2001 to 2023 that were wasted is 1,024,754. And we're now at the moment we've all been waiting for. The average consumption to waste ratio, and it is 69.9% consumption to 30.1% waste. So we can now safely disregard the 75% number that we only used for the sake of argument throughout the last 3 episodes, 7 to 9. And if you're curious, see episode 7 for the context of that reference number. But other than that, thank you all for watching. I'm Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you in episode 10 where we start talking about and covering roast beef and lamb statistics when it comes to Australian Christmas dinner. See you then. Hi everybody, I'm Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to the second and last doubleheader when it comes to the centerpiece meat choices I have covered so far in this series. After I'm done with these, the final one I'll cover is roast chicken. Let's get right into the methodology for roast beef before I get to roast lamb in Australia. For roast beef, convert metric tons to kilograms when it comes to total cattle production only in December for and of every year. Then calculate the total weight of cattle in pounds each December by using the average Australian beef consumption per capita in comparison to the Australian population. The formula of this methodology is this: total cattle production, December only converted to kilograms, divided by 8.25 or 25% of 33 kilograms per person per year, because December is the fourth and final quarter, and then divided by 2.12 pounds or the average weight of a roast beef. And finally, convert kilograms to pounds and see how many were consumed for each respective year, accounting for the entirety of the month of December in Australia. And as you can see here, the formula at play. So we'll just say the consumption numbers. 2001, 215,647 beef roasts. 2002, 263,660 beef roasts. 2003, 244,866 beef roasts. 2004, 244,273 beef roasts. 2005, 227,761 beef roasts. 2006, 263,584 beef roasts. 2007, 250,966 beef roasts. 2008, 250,727 beef roasts. And then the consumption spikes. 2009, 62,738,467 beef roasts. And for 2010, 66,048,300 beef roasts, making the decade average 13,074,825 beef roasts. And, by the way, we're only going to analyze consumption, not waste as well, because it's impossible to measure that if all I ever see is a bunch of useless averages that doesn't refer to anything specific or relevant enough, nor would it matter. It would just be throwing away leftovers. And that wouldn't even be compatible to entirely thrown out roasts, so that's it. The methodology of the next and last centerpiece meat of the duo, which is roast lamb by the way, will practically be the same, but different numbers and units. Instead of measuring by kilograms when it comes to total lamb production, it's in pounds. and so was every other average, such as the average weight of a roast lamb, which is 24.6 pounds, and the average amount in pounds that the average Australian consumes, which is 17.637 pounds in this context. So now let's just rattle off the consumption numbers for roast lamb. 2001, 23,728 lamb roasts. 2002, 22,453 lamb roasts. 2003, 22,213 lamb roasts. 2004, 23,143 lamb roasts. 2005, 23,967 lamb roasts. 2006, 26,324 lamb roasts. 2007, 28,866 lamb roasts. 2008, 28,723 lamb roasts. And then, again, like roast beef, the consumption rate spikes. 2009, 242,408 lamb roasts. And for 2010, 243,064 lamb roasts, making the decade average between 2001 to 2010, 68,489 lamb roasts. Thank you all for watching. I have been your host, Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you in the next episode where we cover the last full decade when it comes to roast lamb and beef statistics. See you then. Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to the last full decade analysis of Christmas beef and lamb statistics in Australia. Let's get straight to it. The methodology remains the same, so for both roast beef and lamb, we're just gonna read out the numbers, so I don't bore you to tears. 2011, 66,176,494 beef roasts. 2012, 68,067,251 beef roasts. 2013, 75,126,077 beef roasts. 2014, 75,664,312 beef roasts. 2015, 75,633,682 beef roasts. 2016, 62,879,266 beef roasts. 2017, 68,013,175 beef roasts. 2018, 72,780,278 beef roasts. 2019, 77,760,531 beef roasts. And finally for 2020, 62,016,828 beef roasts, with the decade average being 70,411,789 of them. Now let's get straight into roast lamb. 2011, 503,048 lamb roasts. 2012, 569,105 lamb roasts. 2013, 604,674 lamb roasts. 2014, 630,081 lamb roasts. 2015, 641,077 lamb roasts. 2016, 655,238 lamb roasts. 2017, 652,982 lamb roasts. 2018, 612,952 lamb roasts. 2019, 621,442 lamb roasts. And for 2020, 624,491 lamb roasts, with a decade average being 611,509 lamb roasts. And before I go, I'm going to make sure that you all know that after this is over, the next episode will be about beef and lamb statistics for 2021 to 2023 and averages, so we can finish off this duology for good. Thank you all for watching. I have been your host, Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you then. Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox, and before we get straight to the math and averages to finish off the final centerpiece duology analysis, throughout the production of this series, I will have these bar graphs taken care of for each centerpiece meat, so you're not missing out. Now let's get straight to the math, starting with roast beef consumption. 2021, 58,033,634 beef roasts. 2022, 59,369,769 beef roasts. And 2023, 73,575,656 beef roasts, making an average, so far, of 63,659,686 beef roasts. Now let's finish off and get straight to roast lamb consumption. 2021, 592,479 lamb roasts. 2022, 673,272 lamb roasts. And finally, 2023, 802,337 lamb roasts, making the average so far for the 2020s 689,363 lamb roasts. Now let's get to roast beef averages for each decade, and then we get the average overall. The 2000s, 13,074,825 beef roasts. The 2010s, 70,411,789 beef roasts. And just like I mentioned earlier in this video, 63,659,686 beef roasts, making the average overall 49,048,767 beef roasts. Now let's get straight into lamb and then give you a short announcement before I end this episode. The 2000s, 68,489 lamb roasts. The 2010s, 611,509 lamb roasts. And just like I said earlier, 689,363 lamb roasts when it comes to 2021 to 2023 so far, making the average overall 456,454 lamb roasts. Now here's the short announcement. As I am producing the last 3 episodes of the series, going over consumption and waste statistics when it comes to roast chicken as the centerpiece of Australian Christmas dinner for the poor Australians there, I will hopefully complete and finish the bar graphs for beef and lamb. Alright, with that being said, thank you all for watching this entire video. I am Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you next time when I analyze the last major centerpiece meat in this entire series. Goodbye to you all. Hi everybody. I am Brian Mullins the Fox, your delightful host. Welcome to episode 13 of Australian Christmas Dinner, Numbers by the Decade. Once again, heading to the land down under with statistical analysis. This time, we're covering the last centerpiece meat choice left to be analyzed, roast chicken. Let's set the methodology straight before we get right into the numbers. I got the production in metric tons statistically accounted for with these screenshots to show for it. The average weight of a roast chicken, or at least a medium-sized one, weighs about 3.5 pounds. And finally, I accounted for waste, as I'll show you later. And with that out of the way, let's show you the numbers. 2001, 943,126 roast chickens. 2002, 1,020,309 roast chickens. 2003, 1,004,371 roast chickens. 2004, 1,116,171 roast chickens. 2005, 1,091,417 roast chickens. 2006, 1,178,429 roast chickens. 2007, 1,195,960 roast chickens. 2008, 1,206,743 roast chickens. 2009, 1,182,811 roast chickens. And 2010, 6,034,286 roast chickens, making the decade average of 1,597,362 roast chickens consumed in Australia between 2001 and 2010. Now let's get straight into waste and show my work. According to available data, a significant portion of meat waste in Australia is attributed to chicken, representing nearly half of all meat consumed, with estimates suggesting that around 50% of wasted meat in Australia is chicken. So only in this sense, we're going to cut the consumption numbers in half so we get the number of roast chickens that were wasted. 2001, 471,563. 2002, 510,154. 2003, 502,185. 2004, 558,085. 2005, 545,708. 2006, 589,214. 2007, 597,980. 2008, 603,371. 2009, 591,405, and for 2010, 3,017,143 roast chickens, making the average between 2001 to 2010, 798,681 roast chickens wasted in Australia. Thank you all for watching this episode. Tune in next time where I cover the last full decade in the sense, and I got a couple of things to announce. Number one, in the final episode of this entire series, after we get to the chicken averages when it comes to both consumption and waste, I'll cover every single side dish that comes with Australian Christmas dinner in general, and give you estimates for each year on average, and the same goes for waste, so you're not really missing anything. And two, after this series is done, that'll be the last Numbers by the Decade series for the year of 2024. So the next time there will be another Numbers by the Decade series, it'll be sometime in either February, March, or even April of 2025. After this series, I'm going to take a long break from this format. But until then, I'm Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you in the next episode. Bye. Hi everyone, I am Brian Mullins the Fox, your delightful host. Welcome to the second to last episode of not just me analyzing roast chicken as the centerpiece of Australian Christmas dinner for the poor, but the entire series in Christmas dinner in Australia as a whole. It's been a long time coming, well over 3 months to be exact, and before I get straight to the math, this has been the easiest to do series when it comes to analyzing and gathering statistics from all the math and methodologies I've done and practiced, and it's been a wonderful well over 3 months of this series being a thing. And by next weekend we're gonna finish it off and end it with a bang, and get to whether or not the average serving of a Christmas dinner in Australia when it comes to any centerpiece meat is about 10 people. And with that being said, let's get straight to the math and methodology. Indirectly, because you're gonna see it on screen. I'm just gonna say the consumption and waste numbers as usual. Let's go into the 2010s. 2011, 1,434,286 roast chickens. 2012, 1,485,714 roast chickens. 2013, 1,548,571 roast chickens. 2014, 1,600,000 roast chickens. 2015, 1,599,366 roast chickens consumed. 2016, 1,764,126 roast chickens. 2017, 1,733,823 roast chickens consumed. 2018, 1,788,149 roast chickens consumed. 2019, 1,732,571 roast chickens consumed. And finally, for the last year of the 2010s, 2020, 1,848,000 roast chickens, making the decade average between 2011 to 2020, 1,653,461 of them consumed as the centerpiece of Australian Christmas dinner for the poor in that country. Now let's get to the waste statistics, which is 50% of the consumption number for each year. 2011, 717,143 roast chickens wasted. 2012, 742,857 roast chickens wasted. 2013, 774,285 roast chickens wasted. 2014, 800,000 roast chickens wasted. 2015, 799,683 roast chickens wasted. 2016, 882,063 roast chickens wasted. 2017, 866,912 roast chickens wasted. 2018, 894,075 roast chickens wasted. 2019, 866,285 roast chickens wasted. And finally, for the last year of the 2010s, 2020, 924,000 roast chickens wasted, making the decade average between 2011 to 2020, 826,730 roast chickens wasted, as the centerpiece of Australian Christmas dinner for the poor. So that about does it for this episode. Before I sign out, I'll see you in the last episode of this series, whilst also gathering up all I can for research about every single other side dish other than the centerpiece meats I've demonstrably shown the statistics of throughout it all. So, thank you all for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe if you want to, and hit the bell. Make sure that you're notified as to when I decide when the next Numbers by the Decade series will be coming out and all that stuff. I'm Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you in the last episode of the series. Bye. Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to the 15th and last episode of Australian Christmas Dinner, Numbers by the Decade, 2001 to 2023. Welcome all to the last episode of the series, where not only do we go over the last of roast chicken consumption and waste statistics, but we also cover all the side dishes and simply go over combined waste statistics, consumption statistics, and whether or not the average gathering size of an Australian Christmas dinner is 10 people. Let's just quickly go over roast chicken consumption. 2021, 4,216,612 roast chickens. 2022, 4,236,869 roast chickens. And finally, for 2023, 4,552,584 roast chickens. Roast chicken consumption average for this time period, 4,335,355 roast chickens. Now let's go straight to waste. 2021, 2,108,306 roast chickens. 2022, 2,118,435 roast chickens. And 2023, 2,276,292 roast chickens. Roast chicken waste average, 2,167,678 roast chickens. Here are the averages for each decade and time period. 2001 to 2010, 1,597,362 roast chickens. 2011 to 2020, 1,653,461 roast chickens. And, like I just said earlier, 4,335,355 roast chickens. The average overall, 2001 to 2023, 1,806,167 roast chickens. Now let's get straight to the waste averages. 2001 to 2010, 798,681 roast chickens. 2011 to 2020, 826,730 roast chickens. And finally, so far, 2021 to 2023, 2,167,678 roast chickens. The average from 2001 to 2023 is 1,264,363 roast chickens. Here are all the 50 sides of an Australian Christmas dinner according to a website called Australia's Best Recipes. Here we go. Fried cabbage, garlic, and herbs. Easy potato bake. Mashed potato and bacon bake. Brown rice salad with yogurt dill dressing. Roast potatoes. Family pasta salad. Cheesy creamy polenta. Brown rice salad. Curry rice salad. Crispy roasted baby potatoes. Caesar salad. Rice salad. Best ever creamy potato bake. Best potato salad. Noodle salad. Couscous salad. Slow cooked cheesy potatoes. French onion potato bake. Cumin chickpea and tzatziki one pan. Roast potatoes and cream. Stuffed potatoes. Pumpkin feta and rocket salad. Easy Australian damper. flaked salmon potato salad, awesome potato salad, Caesar potato salad, Vegemite baked potatoes, pickled beetroot, yummy, mango and avocado salad, quick and easy pasta salad, chicken Waldorf salad, beer bread, Seuss scrumptious chicken salad, rocket and pear salad, barbecue chicken pasta salad, broccoli, cashew and cranberry salad, Thai noodle salad, classic roasted veggie salad, creamy potato bake, riccone salad with leftovers, fresh pasta salad, mango chili salad, bacon and paprika potato wedges, coleslaw, another version of coleslaw, quinoa salad with balsamic maple dressing, easy poached chicken coleslaw, summer coleslaw with chili mango dressing, crash hot potatoes, and finally, Indian naan bread. Now, as to whether or not the average size of an Australian Christmas dinner gathering is 10 people, we're gonna find that out right now. The average serving size for ham is 7 people. For prawns, it's 3 people. For oysters, it's 5.2 people on average. For turkey, it's between 10 to 12 or 11 people. For beef, it's 5.5 people. Lamb is 2.5 or 2 to 3 people. And chicken is 4 to 6 people, or 5 people. And I find out that it isn't 10 people. The average Australian Christmas dinner gathering consists of about 6 people, not 10. And we're going to get to the average number of people that consume each respective centerpiece meat. For ham, the average number of them that are consumed from 2001 to 2023 is 372,873. Multiply that by 7, you get 2,610,111 Australians consuming ham as centerpiece of Christmas dinner on average. For prawns, 11,684,643 Australians on average. For oysters, 7,066,646. For turkey, 309,366 Australians on average consume turkey as centerpiece of Christmas dinner. Beef, 8,917,958 Australians. For lamb, 1,141,135 Australians. And for chicken, 9,030,835 Australians on average between 2001 to 2023. The average Australian population between 2001 to 2023 is 22,763,633 of them. The total number of Australians that consume centerpiece meats that are produced on land only comprises of 22,009,405 of them, or 96.7%. The total number of Australians that consume centerpiece/side dish meats that's produced off land or seafood, 18,751,289 of them, or 82.4%. According to OZ Harvest and Just Skips Adelaide, the weight of all the food waste when it comes to Australian Christmas dinner alone comprises of 5 million metric tons. Converted to pounds, and I get 11,023,113,109 pounds. What percentage of this waste comprises of centerpiece meats alone, excluding prawns and oysters? Ham, 3,281,282.4 pounds wasted annually, with an average one weighing at 8.8 pounds. Turkey, 12,297,048 pounds wasted annually, with the average one weighing at 12 pounds. Beef and lamb combined, because they're eaten together, 26,850,938 beef roasts wasted in pounds, while the number of pounds of roast lamb wasted annually is 30,073,052.1 pounds, with the average beef roast weighing 2.12 pounds and the average lamb roast weighing 24.6 pounds, meaning that on average 1,222,482 lamb roasts wasted annually. And finally, with roast chickens, 7,586,873 pounds wasted annually, with the average one weighing at 3.5 pounds. In total, 80,089,193.5 pounds of all Christmas dinner centerpiece meats in Australia are and were wasted annually alone. And the percentage of that, to answer this question, is 0.0073%. The rest that are and were wasted were other side dishes, excluding prawns and oysters, unwanted desserts, and unwanted leftovers. And now, let's conclude this series and this video accordingly, shall we? Thank you all for watching. It's been a wonderful well over 3 months from episode 1 to this one, episode 15. 15 weeks of just statistic after statistic, centerpiece meat after centerpiece meat. And now, I no longer have to worry about the series just only covering centerpiece meats, because I covered presumably all the side dishes Australia has. And with all that out of the way, I have been your host, Brian Mullins, the Fox, signing out. This is the last Numbers by the Decade series of the year, and there will be one starting in either April or March of 2025. Goodbye to you all.